Well, hello there, and welcome back to another Sunday stream. Hope you're doing well. Let me know in the chat how is life, what are your plans for Sunday, and if sound is sound. Today, I think we will continue with the world building series that we started earlier this year. We will be also, there is a March challenge happening on Discord channel. Do subscribe if you haven't yet. Join our community there. The theme is monsters and robots, and I think that theme we will cover next time. Hello Nervin, sounds good. Nice. Thank you for the confirmation. So, if you have missed previous streams, we are in the process of world building a fantasy planet with hundreds of thousands of years of evolution and magic. It's for an upcoming collectible card game called Suns of Eotara. So, you know, this is what we're up to. We've done already a couple of streams on that. One was more about the cosmology. How is the universe on Eotara viewed by the people who live there? Another one was more on like the continents and, well, one continent that we're covering at the moment. Another one was more on like the lighting conditions and some sketches on how those lighting conditions would translate into an actual environment. And if you remember where it kind of started, there is a world building worksheet available on Discord as well, that goes into world building a little bit, and the template works like that. So we have a planet description, biome description, or like planetary conditions on different levels, then a section on different life forms, and in the worksheet the right column is for sentient species and heroes of the story. In our case, I ran out of space, so this is also just plants. And this was all fun to do with pencil and watercolors, but I thought we haven't done digital sketches in a while. So maybe today we unpack our trusty iPad with a broken screen. Switch to this one. This is, or maybe let's try this one. Maybe this is more fun. So you can actually see that there is a person doing that. More, you know, process focused, as we like it here. So for the let's name it so people who join later know what we're talking about. For the it's just Suns. So I think today it's going to be the plant life of Eotara. We did cover it a little bit before, kind of in the sense of how the different types of plants would adapt to the different environments of Eotara and what are those environments. But for today, I think we're gonna go a little bit deeper and just doodle some plants. The plan is to doodle the plants. What I'm trying to keep in mind are a few important things about the plant. Let me open my notebook here and get the references. Oh, hold your horses. So, as we know, couldn't find the reference, but it's okay. As we know, what we know our conditions in which those plants live. Let's just list them down for further reference. So there is 6 suns, as we know, and there are 8 days, 8-day week, and that's how we say it, right? There was 8-day week, and there are 3 seasons. As we know, with the days of the week, we even have like a diagram here that I can pull on the side so it's a little bit at least visible here. This one. So we have weekdays and we have seasons, and with seasons we have kind of very mild season, very explosive season, and something in between. With 8 days of the week we have individual sun colors or individual suns showing up. So the yellow, the green, let's just mark them actually with the colors. Yellow, green, then both yellow and green also shows up there. This one is yellow and orange. This one is purple, the red, and then I will do all of them as white because the lighting conditions on the last day, because all 6 suns are visible, would be pretty harsh and washed out, that's the right one. And with seasons, yeah, we have the eclipse that goes into scatter, that goes into convergence, that goes into eclipse. And actually, this one is the medium one. The colors of the suns we can also mark here. Conveniently, they are in a rainbow order. So, those conditions we have marked. In terms of anything else, more or less, it's sort of similar to what we have on Earth. So there are like minerals, there is water available, air. What else do the plants need? Like this is light energy, this is like extra materials to build stuff. So with these conditions, we know from at least, it's always weird to say we know when you're talking about a fantasy world, because it doesn't exist, but we're trying to make it grounded and believable. So for that, we are basing a lot of logic of how things work on our Earth. For now, it's kind of the only experience we have to compare stuff with, so here we are. And we did a little bit of that exploration a while ago, but I think using the technologies that we have here with the iPad, we can do some iterations a bit faster. So with those conditions, the beyond kind of, again, we're assuming that some of it or a lot of it will be similar to Earth in the way things work. So, you know, you have plants, you have animals, you have ecosystems, you have physical laws. The only subtle but kind of important difference in that world is that there is magic in the sunlight. So it's not just particles and waves, it's also magic. And in that way, it will affect everything on that planet. So we won't cover the basic plants that will be similar to Earth, you know, like Earth-like plants exist. But you know, it's not really maybe interesting to doodle right now. So let's focus on those plants that would look different, because, you know, ultimately this whole process of world building is only needed for visual vocabulary for artists to draw their card art eventually. And for that, they would use their own imagination to imagine those illustrations, but anyone can imagine what they have seen. So we want to provide some examples of maybe more unique or interesting looking plants. And with that in mind, we can just maybe shrink this so it doesn't take so much space. And then just go ahead and create drawing guide. I'm rotating the canvas so much and the iPad mostly. Actually I'm rotating iPad more than canvas. So I often lose track of where I am, and having a drawing guide kinda helps. Plus it helps you to, you know, turn it on and just do a few horizontal lines to guide yourself. For these plants, we probably will just think in terms of the size of the plant and the, well, let's actually start with biome, and then just, you know, put them by size, because it kind of helps, at least in my head it makes sense to think about plant diversity by size, you know, from tiny algae to grass to maybe tall grass to bushes to small trees to big trees and so on. And biome will help understand, you know, where on the planet this plant is coming from, which in its turn will define the conditions more specifically, so we can adjust the looks of the plants. You know, like you don't have cacti in boreal areas, and you don't have many trees in desert-like biomes. Must be a reason for that. So maybe we just do it by biome first. So the top one will be like boreal and tundra. And then this would be temperate climate. And then this will be tropical. A lot of things in the game, especially in the first set of the cards, will be happening in the desert and around it. So it would be pretty important to end up with a bunch of good plants for the desert backgrounds. So, by the way our planet works, we know that the more energy you have, the more diversity you have in the ecosystem. But at the same time, the harsher the conditions get, the less diversity you get again. So it's kind of like a, I guess, bell curve from super cold, very dormant areas where there is no light and barely any life. Let's draw it actually. It kind of, I guess, maps on on the planet here. So we don't even really need to cover the bottom half because it's gonna be similar. So I guess it's kind of like this. So life diversity would kind of go up and down around the globe. Alright, so we have our overview. For boreal plants, let's see, what do we generally have there? Usually it's, in our case, it would be kind of low light condition. There would be, then because there is no moon, maybe that's another condition that's important. No moon on Eotara, so at night it will be just starlight, so very dark nights, and I guess they would be also long. So all in all, not that much energy to accumulate, even during the most intense seasons. And the winds, they're probably harsh winds because there will be less trees, so a lot of area to speed up. So all our plants would need to kind of adapt to that. And we still have different types of biomes even with kind of within that boreal area, right? So we have stuff that's closer to the seashore, we would have some hills probably, we could also still have some mountain peaks and all that. There would be like icy plains and all that kind of landscapes that probably won't have that much plant life on them. For temperate, we can also do the similar view for plants that live closer to the water, and then maybe more hills, and then again some mountains. And with tropical, we will leave some more space for low plant life. Actually, we can combine all of these and just leave it as like a guides layer. Don't really need all of those separately. And then what we can do to help indicate what kind of to indicate what kind of biome it is. First we need to make sure we don't have any gaps. which we clearly do. Ah, yeah, there is a gap. And there is another one. And there is another one. I don't know if you guys have it, but when you're drawing with a brush that doesn't have super hard edges, I often get these little gaps that then mess up the selection. But it's easy to overcome, just with a little bit of hunting. So for boreal and tundra landscape, we'll have a little bit of blue to indicate coldness, and then mostly this grayish. For temperate, it's gonna be probably more diverse in the color. Actually, for that specific reason, I have a very appropriate brush. It's called Colorful, Blunt and Wild, and it basically makes the rainbow color. Picks random color at the time of pressing. There is also less wild version that probably would be better for this top. And then for tropical, it would have the most amount of energy, so there would be more sunlight. But again, we know that with our suns, they're all different colors, so we would have to also sprinkle some of that fun color diversity around. Mountains could still be snowy, but probably with the conditions on the Eotara, I don't know if the whole year you could sustain snow on top of the mountains on the equator, sort of. Seems a bit tough. You could argue that in the snowy landscapes, those different suns would have more pronounced effect because the snow would reflect the sun more rather than absorb it. Love the boreal mountain temperature colors. Did you write it before I added the rainbow or after. Because I think it was a bit different before. Like the icy blues. Well, I tried to add a little bit of them back. Don't know if it helped. Maybe a little bit. So those are our general landscapes. Let's also add some sky maybe to those. Let's do it really quickly and easily by just taking rectangles. I want to remake this one. Perfectionist in me is asking for a wider rectangle. Back to icy. So the sky on Eotara is still, similar to our, in the sense that it has oxygen and all that goodness, some gases, nitrogen, carbon, some other good ones. But not only, or rather the lighting conditions will still be quite different because of the sun color. In this case, I will just not show any suns because, as you know, every day will have a little bit different conditions. What I do though, maybe add some clouds. Maybe some other kind of clouds here, just low hanging. Kind of flat. And here maybe we'll just add like one big cloud here. And goes kind of behind this. Something like that, but this is still not the plants. We came here to draw the plants. And we still haven't. What's up with that? Alright, let's get some sketch brush. That would be good for this. So in harsh windy conditions we won't have that much plants. I'm trying to do something here, but it's not really working the way I want. Hold on a second. Now if you select this layer here, and theoretically I can just keep the selection, or maybe I do differently. Maybe I'll just do a clipping mask to this one. And instead this one will get an alpha lock. And with a big brush we can tone down the background a little bit. It says tone down and then tones it up. Yeah, I think that works. So finally, for the plants themselves, we can just think in terms of shape first and think how to adjust it later if we need to. So there would be probably small tiny plants with like long stretching roots that would hold on to the ground as much as they can. Maybe there can be something like an ice cactus, you know, with like a crystal like plant of sorts. Maybe there can be some algae that cover rocks that don't mind cold conditions and just, you know, maybe bloom in certain seasons. There would be grass as well. Without color it kind of doesn't look like anything. Let's just mask this layer like this actually and forget about it. So some of these would be probably like crystal sort of structures. The rocks maybe will be covered with like algae with different colorful patterns. Depending on the sun that's shining, they would change their color to maximize the energy intake. And the crystals probably would also reflect all the colors around, so it's not going to be just blue crystals. Trees might be still green for some reason. For example, some of them would be green. But the cool part about these trees would be their massive root network. Maybe some purple grass that comes out when the purple sun is shining with some blue. And these stony shapes, they would also maybe just to indicate that they change color. So when there is yellow sun and the orange sun out, this is the pattern, and then when, for example, green and blue suns are out, then the pattern might be different in some way. Doesn't have to be only in boreal areas, obviously. Those plants would be everywhere. Just maybe looking a little bit differently. What else can we imagine here? Let's move from boreal tundra to more temperate areas. And let me get this pixel perfect brush that I like. So, you know, we're not really looking for complete realism, right? We're just looking for believability. So maybe in temperate climate we have, what do we have normally? Like pine trees and oaks. A lot of trees with leaves. So we can still have trees with leaves, but maybe they will grow in kind of bulks, and each of those individual plants would be kind of responsible for its own color pattern production, but then they would work together to share it in the root network. So kind of like onions. Why onions? There is some kind of onion that has this like a ball on top. You know what I'm talking about? anyhow. So we can have some of these plants. The cool part about them would be obviously the color, so one of them would be maybe more with yellow and orange, and there would be one that specializes on red light, then maybe one for like purple and blue. And the red one maybe is also red and orange. We also can have some plants that, you know, follow the sun, but because there are few different suns, maybe the plants would have like few different heads that wake up at different times or on different days. So something like this, maybe when the sun is out, the right flower opens up. Oh. So maybe this flower is yellow, but this blue one and this is the red one. I want to remove the stabilization, that's a bit too much on this one. There was an idea why that brush was so smooth, because I wanted to draw, you know, like slow lines and make it more smooth with shaky hands, but we don't need that much smoothing for this particular exercise. I wonder if it would be better to have only silhouettes first and then go with color. Yeah, let's do that. Let's first just do some black and white stuff and then colorize it. Maybe there are also some trees that grow like how do you call these things? Wind makers? No. You know what I'm talking about, those kind of things with just different layers of vegetation, maybe get different sunlights. We also can have giant trees with maybe very tall roots, so they kind of have an ecosystem of plants and animals living between those roots. Oh. No, that's not what I wanted. Undo. Sometimes the two fingers gestures stop working for me on Procreate. And it takes a minute for it to remember that it actually knows what I'm trying to achieve. The reasoning why all these trees maybe are having taller root systems is just as an idea, because they're trying to stay away from the ground because it gets so hot during certain seasons, so they just try to stay up. Also, because of those seasons, we would have quite often forest fires there and like firestorms and all these things. So our plants maybe also have adapted to that. Maybe some of them even require fire to get procreating. I think it also is worth drawing a little human for scale. Maybe this person has a stick. Or a spear. Let's let them have a spear. Let's put this guy here as well. I also like to turn on the reference here and make it really tiny and put it somewhere in the corner. That way I can have an eye on the bigger picture. Let's also duplicate these guys and flip them and move them to this side as well. Maybe we don't flip them actually. Just to have a scale on the other side as well. So then these crystals and rocks will get much bigger. This we can remove the suns and just keep the rocks. And the rocks can be kind of any size, I guess. I think for the next stream, next stream we're gonna be doing the Discord challenge topic, but the stream afterwards probably gonna be another one with plants or some nature related things, maybe landscapes more. But later, afterwards, it's gonna be fun to do some actual design stuff. So maybe more like different faction crests or costumes and stuff like that. So that's gonna be fun. Want to keep them all kind of consistently black and add color later. Maybe here we have some glowing plants on the sticks. Because why not? You can also have something like a, radar type of plant that follows the sun. But maybe it's massive. Something like this. When we add color, we can make this even more interesting with some reflective colors or different color combinations or color patterns. I also think maybe that's for the tropical climate. We can have those plants that are hanging off other plants. So if we have like a tree that maybe tries to grow very tall and very wide, we can call it a mushroom tree. There's a kind of thin crown here. Maybe it has just kind of few big branches that branch out, and the rest is just a couple of small branches, and then all of this is just interwoven with like different lianas and hanging plants. Those could also be nests of some birds. So this one is a very symbiotic tree. It has a lot of other life forms that living together or relying on it. Maybe they also have a sunflower, but it actually looks like a flaming sun. It has like a very tall stem to stand out from the rest. Also need some bushes that maybe have fun coloring on them. Color pattern bush. So these would be, I guess, examples of plants trying to stand out from the crowd with their flowers or fruits sticking out when the season is right. We can also have kind of like a cactus, but maybe with very big spikes and a very strange color. When we get to the color, because there is magic, we can also have plants that are almost or somewhat sentient and can maybe move around or take certain shapes. So maybe there is a tree that walks around on this thin, long roots, and it doesn't really walk as much as it kind of rolls, I guess. And it has like one stem ultimately at the front of it, with maybe like a fruit of sorts. Like this, and maybe there is a plant that's kind of like one-sided. And it's always pointing in some direction. Maybe it's always looking south or leaning north. Can be also a tree with, or some kind of very tall grass maybe, with these huge leaves, kind of like Victoria something leaves. You know, those water plants that have these gigantic leaves on which you can stand. Maybe in this universe it's not in water, it's standing upright. Something like this, and maybe the pattern on the top will also be something interesting eventually when we get to the color, which we're probably gonna do pretty soon. Don't have to be perfectly round because they're plants. Maybe they're round-ish. Maybe we need some plants like the one we had for temperate climate board, instead of standing upright. These ones are kind of just looking down because it's very hot and humid. Something like this, and then let's see where else do we have some space. Let's add some more plants here, maybe a simple tree. It has fruits hanging off of it. You know, sometimes nature can be very precise and symmetric when it wants to, so maybe this is the case. Maybe there is one that's kind of like a mega ginkgo. We can maybe add some more fun to this. Instead of just color, maybe this grass here is also some like tiny flowers sticking out. Just to make it a little bit more maybe meaningful. Just purple grass is also fine. Nothing wrong with that, but we're looking for some, I guess, more fun here. Plus here we can add some some other vegetation. Maybe there is not just the moss, but some grass here and there. But here in the boreal tundra biome, probably won't have that much diversity. I like the idea of crystalline trees, so maybe some of the trees actually figured out how to withstand the cold by making themselves, kind of covering themselves in crystals. Not that they figured it out, you know, consciously, obviously. They have like tiny crowns because you lose them so easy. And now let's color it up a little bit. So up north we already have some of these trees, some of these grasses and things colored. But Maybe these flowers actually like yellow. These crystals, they just look like crystals. I'm not sure how to make them look like they're living creatures, but the idea is that it's actually like a moss that just reflects the surface so well. Maybe in the darker areas you will see its true color, which would be, I guess, green. Maybe for this we actually use this colorful blunt brush, which is also making up colors on the go, but much more subtly. I think that's gonna look nice. So maybe there is some lichen, moss-like, friend of moss, a friend of algae. Changes color depending on the season and the time of the day and the day itself. You can still have green grass growing around it. But the stone itself maybe needs a little bit more color as well. What do they want to do with this tree? They also want to make it reflective? I think so. Let's see if I can. Doesn't really look reflective. Alright, let's just quickly drop some color on the other ones just to see how it would look like. And then it's time for some music. I hope you're ready for some grooves. Okay, this would be maybe a little bit brown, but actually more green. So we can kind of color this also green. For this one, I imagined kind of layers of colorful leaves. Maybe some are adapted for blue, some are adapted for green. This one, maybe a red tree, some reddish bark, maybe a bit of orange. This one, as we already established, yellow and red and blue. This one perhaps has maybe green fruits. And blue, turquoise leaves. These ones I wanted to make kind of bright yellow, but the stems can be still green, for example. But this big tree, maybe it has some patterns on the skin, on the crust. No. Bark, that's the word. The tree crust. Maybe something along these lines, why not? This one can be also green, because why wouldn't it be? Maybe with some orange coloration on the leaves here and there. But the top can be bright turquoise, maybe with white trim. And this one maybe has a red and purple head. And the green crest. Except the roots, that can be still a little bit greenish. These ones could be more, I guess, weird, these tropical trees. Maybe they have more color diversity because they have so much energy to mutate and go around trying out new things. Maybe these balls are pink. This one is blue with purple flowers with some white speckles. These ones maybe white with purple stems. Maybe they only hang out in the night. And these I wanted to make kind of bright green. Maybe their tops are actually yellow. You can also have some fun patterns here. One of the key distinctive features, I think, of this world is the colorfulness. So we want to keep that in our designs, or rather communicate that in the way how things look. The question I'm asking myself often when working on this fantasy stuff is, if it's all imagined, you know, and made up, how far you can get it, or, you know, why does it look so similar to what we already know? And part of the answer to that is you want to have, you know, relatability between our world and fantasy world. Otherwise it's going to be really hard to relate for people who are interacting with that world, like players or readers. But at the same time, you know, I think you should want to push it a bit further away from mainstream ideas, from classic fantasy tropes and stuff like that. Just, you know, these are all good starting points. We're all kind of embedded with this pop culture and stuff, and this is fine. But maybe challenging those, or subverting expectations, so to say, or, you know, challenging those ideas in some ways, pushing them a bit further, or breaking the rules. I think it's a good practice to get your worlds feel and look a bit different than maybe what people expect, and be more memorable as a result. We'll see if we succeed with this world that we're working on. I hope so, but time will tell how much longevity does these ideas have, how much they will resonate with people. But I think for the drawing part of our stream, we sort of reached the satisfactory conclusion, wouldn't you think? We doodled some plans for different biomes, different levels of biomes, different altitudes. One day it might all go into one world building Bible for our project, but until then, let's do some music and finish it up on that. If you're new to this experience, then let me quickly bring you up to speed. This is Roland MC101 Groovebox. It can groove, and this is what I'm gonna be doing in the next probably 15 minutes, just playing around with it. The previous project from last stream unfortunately didn't get saved because the power of the Groovebox went on before I managed to save it. So today we will start from scratch and try something. Well, I wouldn't say. Yeah, it's new. Every week is something new. So let's see. I have, just to save some time, I did preload a brush kit. Why can't you hear it? Or can you? Maybe it's just me who can't hear it. Properties. Advanced properties. Give me a moment. Wonder why I can't hear it. But it looks like the sound is going to the stream. Okay. Input, output, monitor. Very, very strange. Let me add this here. Let's try to add this again. Add working computer. Well, that's bad on my side. Maybe I can fix this. Let me check if actually you can hear it on the stream. You do hear it on the stream. Filters. Well, I guess I will try to improvise something while listening through the stream. Let's try something slow. Okay, wish me luck, and I see you on the other side. looks like we arrived to the other side. Even though it was a bit rough on the edges, we still got there. Thank you, your wonderful viewer on Twitch, and you on YouTube, for sticking with me until the end. I see you and I appreciate you. Thank you all for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed this stream, and I hope to see you in the next one. Have a wonderful day. Bye bye.